Hello, I'm Amy Lewis Hofland. I'm the Senior Director of the Crow Museum of Asian Art, and this is so fun because Scott, my cinematographer, and I, who's also my husband, have come in to the closed museum to give you a private tour. And I'm going to share 5 or 6 works of art that are my favorites in the museum right now and teach you a little bit about them. We're here inside of this beautiful site-specific installation by contemporary artist Chinese-American BEILI Liu. BEILI teaches sculpture at the University of Texas at Austin. And what she's created here is a work of art that she calls Lure. And Lure is about the legend of the red threads. So you can see that there are spools here that are created with miles and miles of red thread. And each spool is connected to another spool in the installation. And this is about that through our roots and through our family ties and through our traditions, histories, and generations, we are connected to each other in this universe. And so BEILI is really thinking about, I love this work because it lifts the human spirit and it helps us think about our common humanity, and it feels like a really good work of art to have in the museum right now. We're going to leave this up, hopefully we can use more of it from this fall, and hopefully we can see it in person. So now I've brought you up to the mezzanine in the Crow Museum of Asian Art at the University of Texas at Dallas. And this is an installation, second half of BEILI's installation called One and Another. And this is the second time it's been installed. This is a little bit different than the previous installation. But it is a tremendously beautiful work of art created with streams that have been dipped in concrete. And BEILI also has a young daughter, I believe she's 7 or 8. And she saved many of her daughter's clothes in her first few years. And she also acquired clothes from friends and dipped those clothes into concrete. And she has placed them here very gently on the floor in a repeated pattern. And this is an homage to the children that are currently detained on the border in this conflict between Mexico and the United States and the countries of Central America. So I think it's a very beautiful, bold statement about what can I do about this. And BEILI's work is very process driven. And so I feel like there's a lot of intention and obviously time that goes into her work. And I think the message, because of that deep intention in that time, her presence in the work, the message is very powerful. She created a performance piece that accompanied this installation, and she sat at the chair and the table over there and mended torn clothing, which is really an expression of a mother's work. And it was a nice compliment to the installation. And so that's why she's included the thread. And then I want to show you this here. These are crocheted baby booties that she dipped in concrete. And just obviously the symbolism of concrete, the permanence of concrete is pretty tremendous. And I think as a Museum of Asian Art, it's important for us to exhibit contemporary voices, and especially those voices of Asian American artists who are working here in the United States, working with our future generations, and having the Crow as a place where these voices are expressed and these ideas are expressed is really important to me. I think contemporary art is a portal for someone who might not be interested in the more traditional arts of Asia. And so they'll come to see this, and then they'll begin to learn about the traditional callings that a contemporary work of art might have. So we're gonna head downstairs to Arbor Walk. We're now in the East Pavilion of the museum, And this is an installation about lacquer. Lacquer is a very popular media in Japanese art, Korean art, and even Chinese art, actually probably more in Chinese art. And your cinematographer is showing you several examples in the permanent collection. So we've seen 2 works of art that are site-specific installations upstairs and below us. But these 2 boxes that you're seeing, this is a picnic box, are part of the Crow Museum's permanent collection, meaning they're part of the Crow family. So this is a picnic box, and I want you to kind of imagine the last picnic you have had and what the containers look like that you took on this picnic. And this is made of lacquer, so you have examples of different styles of lacquer production. One of the backgrounds that you see is the beautiful pear skin lacquer, and this would have held the sake in this container, and then you would have had your trays for different Japanese dishes that you would take on your picnic. So it's a beautiful example of the confluence of form and function, which is one of the things that Japanese art expresses, I would say, the most beautifully. And there's a nice landscape at the top of a mountain with a man on horseman and his attendant with a sword. And so that's a Japanese lacquer. Now I'd like to show you an example of Chinese lacquer. The permanent collection of the Crow Museum really is an expression of Trammell's personal taste. He liked all kinds of objects, from tiny little jades that fit in your hand to larger vessels like this. And he liked large pieces because they could hold a space. He was also very interested in the messages that some of these works of art carry. This is made of lacquer, thousands of layers, maybe hundreds, we should say, hundreds of layers of lacquer. Lacquer is a very interesting production process. It's a derivative of a sap. You boil a sap from a tree like a sumac tree. And the armature of a wooden vase, so you carve the wooden vase, is dipped into a vat of boiling lacquer. And the families that worked in lacquer production often complained of rashes and burns, just like you might get if you encountered a sumac tree here in North Texas, very similar. So each layer requires about 36 to 72 hours to dry. And you can imagine then that the preparation of this piece before you can even begin the carving process might take more than a year. These layers harden, they actually don't dry, they harden with the right levels of humidity on the surface. And what is here is these artisans have chosen to depict several scenes from a series in the Analects of Confucius's Miracles. Confucius lived from 551 to 479 BC. He was a very important philosopher and one that Trammell studied voraciously in his life. He really applied many of the aspects of Confucian ideal to his own business principles. A little mix of corporate and art. Now, Now we're in the Jade room of the Crow Museum, and I wanted to share 3 works of art in here that I think are pretty special. This is a miniature mountain, and it's a wonderful example of the duality of artists, really, in the production of Jade works of art. And so you've got the stone that has this beautiful russet skin that tells us that originally is a stone, which was, before it was a stone, it was lava that erupted from a volcano and then settled into the beds of a river. And this river where this stone was had a high iron quality, higher iron content. So we get this beautiful russet skin. So you have nature as the first artist of the shape of this stone. And then you have the artist that went in and very delicately altered the interiors with priests or lohans who are in philosophical or religious discussion inside of the grottos or the caves, beautiful stairwells leading into nooks and crannies. It really is quite a work of wonder. And we know that it was in the collection of a very high level official in the imperial court because it's placed on a zeton base, which Zeton is a high quality hardwood, and only the finest jades were commissioned to have this kind of base. So I think it's a really tremendous example of landscape, the relationship with man and nature, and the sort of the duality of how art is created both in partnership with nature. And now we're going to go over here and see a very different example of a jade, much flashier. This comes from the south of China, and in this work of art, the leaves of the tree are made of jade. And it's made in Canton. It is a tribute gift. So in China, you could send in your taxes to the emperor in the form of works of art. This was an artist this was a collector who was really showing off his wealth to the emperor. And he was demonstrating that he could afford to hire the stonesmiths to carve the peaches of immortality. So there's a lot of symbolism in this work of art, but these peaches are made of rose quartz and carnelian, there's agate and hardstone. There's also the enamel artist that created the tree and the boat, and then you have the ivory artist that created the two figures. So it's a very showy, sort of ostentatious work of art, which has now come into taste again here in the 21st century. And now we're going to move over to this little sweet milk jade. Many of the names of jade come from the actual visual properties of what it is. This is nephrite. There are two mineral properties of jade. One is nephrite, one is jadeite. This is nephrite. And I just bring you here to show you the chain, which may be a little bit hard to see. But the chain is not carved out. These rings are not added. It's actually carved within the stone. So you would start one ring and then start the next. And the chain is also functional. It connects the lid of the vessel, which is decorative for the most part, to the base of the work of art. And I just think it's perfectly pure, which was why it was considered one of the finest qualities of jade, and one of the finest jades considered very pure is white jade. So I'm going to show you that one. So this is what we call Gallery 3 of the Crow Museum. We have two beautiful architectural works of art that are here. This is a marble chattery. Both of these works of art date to about 1750, so mid-18th century. We know that this comes from Agra, and it is made of white marble, very contemporaneous to the Taj Mahal, and reflective of that style of carving and architecture. A chattery would have been attached to a building as an architectural feature, maybe kind of up high. You can imagine some of the things you've seen. And it's really a beautiful example. This came from the Crow's Farm. So out in East Texas, near Mineola, they have a beautiful tree farm, and this was on the property as part of their sculpture collection. And when the museum was being assembled and all of the best pieces were kind of sourced across the country in the Crow's expanded collection, this was considered one of the best and brought to this gallery as kind of a foothold for other works of art. So we are in the middle of transitioning to exhibitions here. So we have the chattery here, and we also have the sandstone facade. Sandstone facade is tremendous. It's 27 feet wide. It's from Jaipur, India, in Rajasthan. It also dates to about 1750. It is made of stone. A lot of people think that it's wood, but it is made of stone. The windows are made of wood. And this is the second floor of a haveli, or a palace, that might have had a storefront below it. It's an example of Islamic carving, and it has two techniques that I want to show you. So the one at the top, where you see the balcony, and you can see the pierced or reticulated stone, that is the jali technique of carving. And that traditionally would have been a place, a shield for Muslim women to stand behind the wall, look out into the courtyard, but not be seen. And then in the lower section, where you actually need the function of a wall, that's where you get the half jali technique. So there's still a wall behind the carving, and you get this tremendous repeated geometric pattern and motif. You also kind of swirling lotuses in the pattern. really beautiful craftsmanship. And then I also love the arch over the window here, which served a functional purpose of allowing rain to fall around the window and not disrupt the view of the person inside the home. So you had this capacity, almost like a rain gutter. You had this capacity to have the rain come off the roof in a beautiful way. And I'll tell you a secret going back to the Chatry. I'll tell you a little insider museum secret. So when the architects and the interior designers and the art installers were all here and they finished installing the Chatry, they were about to put the finial at the top, and they decided to all place their business cards inside of the finial. And so at some moment in the future, long, long way, someone will deinstall the Chatry and they will find the names of the human beings who helped build the Crow in 1998. I think that's so cool. A little secret. We're going to go, we're going to head on outside. I'm going to teach you a little bit about where the Crow Museum is. So I'm going to share just a couple of treasures that are outside of the Crow Museum that they aren't here in Dallas Art District. This is the Dallas Bowser. And he's been in the fountain since 1998. We know that there is one in the collection at St. Louis. There were originally 3 of these figures, and we don't know where the third is. So if you've ever seen something that looks like this in a private collection or in a museum, let us know. So someday we're going to reunite all 3. And then I also want to share the 2 lions that are here as breeders. And one is male and one is female. The male is on the right. These are symbols of good fortune and Chinese art. And you know the female? She has a little baby under her paw here. That tells us that's the female. And traditionally, the female is on the left and the male is on the right. These date to about the 17th century, so they're 400 plus years old. Really nice sort of guardian figures in the Crow Museum. This is the front door to the museum. Of course, they are closed right now for COVID-19, and we don't have an anticipated start date. Hopefully later this fall, we'll see. But I wanted to just sort of share that the Crow Museum of Asian Art opened in '98. They were acquired by UT Dallas in 2019 in January, so it's been a year and a half. This is now UTD South, and very much an extension of the campus at 800 West Campbell is right here in this arts district, which is about 45 years old. The founders started planning this in around 1976, and the Symphony was the first building here in 1979. It is really of the Dallas Arts District. The McDermott family was incredibly instrumental in planting the Dallas Symphony here in this northeast quadrant of Dallas. The Dallas Museum of Art followed in 1984, and it's here on the east side of the district. And then across the street is the Nasser Sculpture Center, which opened in 2003. And the Pro is really here. We call ourselves the Museum District of the Arts District. On the east side, you've got the performing arts spaces of the Winspear Opera House, the Wiley Theater, City Performance Hall or Moody Performance Hall, Dallas Black Dance Theater, and then you've got One Arts Plaza. And all of that is about 68 contiguous acres, which makes it the largest arts district in the world. And we're so thrilled now that the Crow Museum is part of Dallas. I think you'll come have a tour. We'll walk through the open front door Sunday afternoon